Class, this is Dr. Peter Trzopin. Wanted to post a video more for the education channel because I just had a topic come up. And then, of course, as a discussion, like a post and announcements, so it's dual purpose. What I'd really like to address is academics and how we proceed with our work in the sense of each school is different, okay? Every school has something similar, like discussion posts and maybe a written assignment. It could be like an assessment, it could be a paper, and then of course there's quizzes and fill in the blanks, and every school has a variety of these things. And so when you do quizzes and all that, and you open the book and you look it up and you put ABC or 1, 2, 3 or fill in a word, it normally is pretty straightforward. And that's easier for professors. It's automatically graded, it makes sense, checks your knowledge, and so these are pretty straightforward things. When you get into discussion posts and you get into like assessments and papers, that's where every school is a little different. Some have more academic focus, some just want you to reflect, but most of them at some point have to say they agree that if you're going to use sources, you cite them correctly. And so whether you're doing a discussion post, whether or not you're doing an assessment, written paper, whatever, if you start using sources, it's always a good idea to cite in proper APA. Now, some people say, well, Dr. P, you focus a lot on APA and you're really, you really hammer that a lot. And the answer is yes, I do, because one, I can give you APA steps that help you do better, showing you actual steps to do a better analysis, okay, how you develop things better through good writing and citing and sourcing and all that. But there comes a point where I'll grade something. For example, I just got done, and when you see this video, it might be years later, but I just got done grading some writing assignments, assessments, and things like that, and some discussion posts. And I have students that simply cut and paste things, or they'll go to other classes they take and recycle. And so the question really for me is, are you here to learn and develop your education? And for the most part, that means, are you trying to write better? Are you trying to research better? And are you trying to develop your analytical skills and analyze things in a stronger way? And so these are all important. These are important 3 critical skills I think most people are trying to develop. Well, it's nice to have the knowledge, but education isn't a check mark. It is not a list of things. Check, 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 check. I get the class. I'm done. Let's go to the next one. It's not about just repeating what you know. It's not about you're so experienced that overrides everything else. You have to do things correctly. And part of that is using sources and academic ones and not just going to Wikipedia, the internet, websites, things like that, dictionaries, all that type of stuff. So we want to take time to develop our work effectively. Some students don't understand how to use APA. Like I just had a rash of things that came up where students are simply just cutting and pasting things in from sources, or the smarter ones try to delete a few words and then makes it not look like it's 100% copied. Or they try to cite and say, see, I cited it, and so I copied it all, but I changed a little bit, just a few words, and and then I try to cite and make it all better. But when you have, when you're paraphrasing, that's one of the videos I do, like this, don't do paraphrasing, because sometimes when you lose a couple words, you're not really changing enough, and you're not really developing enough of your work. In other words, it looks too much like the original, and you're not citing it correctly. So the best advice I can give students at any point is, if you don't know something, ask. And like anything, sometimes you make mistakes that you can recover from. Other times it's that serious you can get written up for, and you don't want to get in that situation. And then of course that causes anxiety, stress, and a lot of like, well, what do I do now? Another aspect of it too is, just because other professors don't care or they don't do something about it doesn't mean that it's not an actual issue. It doesn't mean that just because you haven't heard it doesn't mean it's not true. Just because someone doesn't care enough to tell you doesn't mean it isn't happening. And so it's always good to look at what the professor's offering, what their focus is, what are they doing to try to improve your grading and education, what techniques and tools and whatever they're doing to help you do that, and take that for what it is for the course of that class, and then the next class you can change and do what that professor wants. And so I celebrate the diversity of students, but I also celebrate the diversity of professors. Having said all that, the main key here is, if you need help, ask for it. If you don't understand something, again, ask. If you need help or writing help, there's programs like Perla, the Al Purdue. There's always an APA guide in classes, but there's normally a writing center. There's also the professor, but you just have to ask, and that support is very critical. The key is not to ask after the fact and say, well, I didn't know after, half the semester's over. That's not going to work. And not reading the feedback doesn't do anything. And saying other professors let me do it. So that's the ex-professor video I do. You have to sit there and own your education and be in charge of it. And so just yelling, complaining, filing complaints doesn't solve the problem. If a professor doesn't grade things on time, sure, that's a complaint. If they don't give feedback, I can see that being a complaint. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's really a complaint, and just because you are getting lower grades doesn't mean it's a complaint either. So kind of keep these things in perspective. Understand where the professor's coming from. Call them, email, get together. That normally solves a lot of problems. But if you ever find yourself copying and pasting work, then that's normally plagiarism. And so be aware. It can happen in anything, but take care and do the best you can. If there's anything else, drop me a line, and best of luck.